The dream that was Rome. We're looking at a tale of epic scale today, a transformative, deeply personal journey that defines the very soul of an empire, and the incredibly heavy price one man pays to restore its light. This is a story carved out of blood, dirt, cutthroat politics, and a fragile whisper of an idea that ultimately changed the world. Just think about this trajectory for a second. The general who became a slave, the slave who became a gladiator, the gladiator who defied an emperor. That right there, that anchors our entire narrative. We're talking about a rapid, brutal descent from the absolute pinnacle of the Roman Empire straight down into the mud and chains of captivity, and then climbing back up into the blinding light of the arena, all leading up to the ultimate defiance against a tyrant. To understand the glory of Rome, we have to start with the final campaign in Germania. Our story kicks off at the absolute height of our main character's power. His name is Maximus Decimus Meridius. He's out there leading the Roman legions, the armies of the north, into a freezing, utterly brutal final battle in Germania. Picture the air just thick with flaming arrows, the roar of catapults shaking the ground, as Maximus commands his cavalry to literally unleash hell. He is a man who fights with the simple, unbreakable creed of his legions, strength and honor. And after years of grueling war, he finally brings victory to the dying emperor, Marcus Aurelius. Now, the core conflict here really boils down to a clash of virtues. You have the aging emperor, Marcus Aurelius, who deeply values wisdom, justice, fortitude, and temperance. But his son, Commodus? Well, Commodus openly admits his own virtues are ambition, resourcefulness, and devotion, which, is basically a polite way of saying he's a walking red flag. Because Commodus so clearly lacks the moral compass required to rule, the emperor makes a shocking decision. He decides he's not going to pass the throne to his own son. He's giving it to Maximus. Marcus Aurelius actually says, "There was once a dream that was Rome. You could only whisper it." It's crazy to think about just how fragile that idea of a republic really is, right? Looking back on 25 years of conquest and bloodshed with a really heavy heart, the emperor's dying wish is for Maximus, a man who is completely uncorrupted by politics, to become the protector of Rome and give the power back to the Senate and the people. But this leads directly to the fall of the general in what is basically the ultimate betrayal. When Commodus is told he won't be emperor, his reaction is devastating. Starved of his father's love and approval his whole life, Commodus breaks down. He cries that he would butcher the whole world if his father would only have loved him. And then, in a jealous, suffocating rage, he actually smothers Marcus Aurelius to death. Commodus immediately demands the loyalty of the army's greatest general, but Maximus senses the foul play and flat out refuses to take Commodus's hand. Look at the sheer speed of the fall of Maximus here. One day he's the general of the Felix legions, next he's betrayed by Commodus and declared a traitor. He's dragged into the freezing woods to be executed, and he only barely escapes because the frost makes the executioner's blade stick. But he's terribly wounded. He becomes a deserter and a fugitive, riding relentlessly toward his home in Spain, only to find his estate burned to the ground and his wife and son murdered and crucified by Commodus's men. Completely broken and near death, he's captured by slavers and ends up a slave in Carthage, from the top of the world to the absolute bottom in a matter of days. "Blessed Father, watch over my wife and son with a ready sword." That's literally all he has left. Stripped of absolutely everything, the only thing keeping Maximus breathing is the memory of his murdered family and his deep belief in the afterlife. Elysium. He prays to his ancestors to watch over his wife and son, whispering that he lives only to hold them again. For Maximus, everything else in this life is now just dust and air. And from that absolute rock bottom begins the rise of the gladiator, taking him from the dusty provinces all the way to the Colosseum. Down in Carthage, Maximus is bought by this harsh, highly pragmatic slaver named Proximo, who throws him straight into the brutal, flea-infested provincial arenas. At first, Maximus just refuses to fight for sport, but when faced with imminent death, the lethal instincts of Rome's greatest general just take over. He survives, slaughtering his opponents with a cold, terrifying efficiency. Now, Proximo, who is actually a former gladiator who won his own freedom from Marcus Aurelius, lays out Proximo's strategy for survival. It's a brutal but brilliant three-step plan. Step 1, don't just kill, entertain. Step 2, win the crowd. And step 3, win your freedom. He basically tells Maximus, look, being a butcher just isn't enough. The mob doesn't just want death, they want a hero. But Maximus harbors this incredibly deep disgust for the blood sport. After effortlessly dispatching a whole group of gladiators in a provincial ring, he literally throws a sword into the stands and shouts, "Are you not entertained? Is this not why you're here?" He despises the crowd, yet ironically, his sheer disgust and unmatched combat skills are exactly what make him the greatest entertainer they've ever seen. They start calling him the Spaniard, this giant who simply cannot be killed. This brings us to a crucial turning point: winning the crowd, specifically during the Battle of Carthage reenactment. Meanwhile, back in the capital, the new emperor Commodus is facing a massive crisis. The people are starving, and he's secretly selling off Rome's grain reserves to fund a massive spectacle, 150 days of games. He knows that Rome isn't the marble of the Senate, it's the mob. By conjuring magic and death in the arena, he can distract the people from their own misery and his own tyrannical overreach. So Proximo's troop gets thrown into the Colosseum. Picture this: 50,000 Romans watching every single movement. It is a terrifying, awe-inspiring stage. For their first match, Commodus arranges this grand reenactment of the Battle of Carthage, fully expecting Maximus and his fellow gladiators to be completely slaughtered, playing the role of the barbarians. But Maximus takes command. Barking orders exactly like he did in Germania, he unites the gladiators. They lock their shields, they fight as one, and they completely upset the emperor's staged massacre. Stunned by this totally unexpected victory, Commodus descends to the arena floor to meet this undefeated champion. He orders the gladiator to remove his helmet. Maximus turns his back and finally reveals his true identity with one of the most chilling vows ever spoken. "My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius, father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife, and I will have my vengeance." Commodus is desperate to just execute him right there on the sand, but he's trapped. The 50,000 citizens in the stands are chanting for the gladiator to live. Terrified of losing the mob, Commodus is forced to spare him. With Maximus miraculously alive and defying the emperor at every single turn, a political conspiracy forms in the shadows, a desperate plot to overthrow a tyrant. Maximus ends up forming a highly dangerous alliance with Commodus's sister, Lucilla, who lives in constant terror for her young son's life, and Senator Gracchus, a politician who is still dedicated to the true ideals of Rome. They realize something huge. While Commodus controls the mob, and therefore controls everything, Maximus's victories are slowly, surely bleeding away the emperor's aura of invincibility. So they hatch the coup plan, and it's a massive gamble to fulfill Marcus Aurelius's dying wish. Step 1, Gracchus will buy Maximus's freedom from Proximo. Step 2, smuggle him outside the city walls to Ostia. And Step 3, return with 5,000 men to overthrow Commodus. You see, Maximus's loyal soldiers have been camped out at Ostia all winter just waiting. Once he takes command, they'll march on Rome, neutralize the Praetorian Guard, kill Commodus, and hand the power right back to the Senate. But the whole plot unravels in the most chilling way possible. Commodus actually discovers the treachery through innocent stories told by Lucilla's young son, Lucius. He corners his terrified sister, and Commodus makes it absolutely clear that if she ever displeases him, or even tries to take her own life to escape him, her son will be killed. He demands her total submission, forces her to agree to provide him with a pure-blood heir, and screams this utterly terrifying question right in her face: "Am I not merciful?" It's all just a sick way to validate his own twisted sense of control. Which sets the stage for Shadows and Dust, the final confrontation. The emperor strikes back with terrifying speed. The Praetorian Guard raids the gladiator barracks in the dead of night. Senator Gracchus is arrested. Proximo finally realizes he has to choose a side, and he actually sacrifices himself to buy Maximus time to escape, muttering that they are all just shadows and dust. But despite the brave stand of his fellow gladiators, Maximus is ambushed at the city gates. His loyal servant Cicero is killed, and Maximus is dragged back in chains. So now Commodus has his ultimate enemy in chains. But he can't just execute him and make him a martyr, right? He needs a famous death to win back the mob. He challenges Maximus to a fight in the great arena. But it's the ultimate trap, because he's a coward. Right before they enter the Colosseum, Commodus secretly stabs the chained Maximus deep in the side, and then orders his guards to conceal the wound with armor to ensure his own victory. So Maximus is literally bleeding out, struggling just to remain standing as he walks out onto the sand for the final time. Commodus taunts him, asking him to smile. But Maximus, echoing the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, reminds the corrupt emperor, "Death smiles at us all. All a man can do is smile back." And what follows is a grueling, brutal duel. The dying Maximus manages to disarm Commodus, and when the Praetorian Guard flat-out refuses to hand the emperor another sword, Maximus overpowers him, driving a blade right into the tyrant's throat. And that's how we see the dream realized. With the tyrant dead on the sand, a dying Maximus delivers his final commands. He orders the prisoners freed, specifically his surviving gladiator brothers. He demands the Senate be reinstated and declares that Rome is to be returned to the people, exactly as Marcus Aurelius envisioned. As his vision blurs, the gates to Elysium finally open. He walks through those sunlit wheat fields, finally returning to the wife and son who have been waiting for him. Lucilla kneels beside the fallen general and asks the stunned crowd and the silent Senate this incredibly profound question. Is Rome worth one good man's life? We believed in the greatness of Rome once, she says, and we must make ourselves believe it again. The cost of restoring the Republic, of ending all that deep-seated corruption, was the ultimate sacrifice of the empire's absolute greatest son. He was a soldier of Rome. Honor him. As the emperor's body is just left lying there in the dust, the men who fought beside Maximus carry his body out of the arena with the highest reverence. The dream of the Republic was paid for in blood. And it really leaves us to wonder, in our own world, when corruption takes hold, what are we willing to sacrifice to whisper that dream back into existence?